Right then folks, so something a little bit different, and we are going to be doing all things talking about fishing your first match, whether that's an open or a club match. So we're going to break it down into manageable chunks, just for you that Richard. First up is, should I fish an open or should I fish a club match? My way of thinking is this folks, if you're just sort of like new to fishing, you want to get into it, then 100% I'd recommend fishing club matches. Don't go into opens. I'll explain a little bit of my reasoning behind that, but basically club matches, you're basically fishing with the same blokes pretty much every time you go out. Now whether that's once a week, every other week, that kind of thing. And also it gets you used to different kinds of venues. Not necessarily be fishing on the same venue, it might be a mixture of natural venues and commercials. If that's the case and you've not really fished natural venues or vice versa, find a club that fishes on venues that are suited to you. So let's take commercial venues for example. So what'll happen, your matches will generally run from March through to like October or something like that, usually when it's warmer. Don't usually get club matches that run when it's colder. Some do, but most sort of like March till October and fishing every other week. Now these will be on a mix of commercial venues, so commercial canals, snake lakes, open waters, that kind of thing. And I think it's important that you sort of like get used to that side of it first. Get used to like mixing with other people, and obviously you can't not learn off the people that have been fishing in the club longer than you, because one thing's for sure, you'll get some proper good old boys there that have been fishing, you know, every single club match since day one, and they're just a mind of like useful information. They'll be able to tell you what's what about everywhere and everything that you're likely to encounter. The trouble that you'll have with open matches, now don't get me wrong folks, you're going to learn loads more, so much more in open matches. That is no discredit to obviously club anglers or club fishing at all. It's just the fact that open match anglers, as it says, they're fishing all the time on a lot of different venues, is you tend to get the same anglers that might fish the same venue sort of 2, 3, 4 times a week, and they're so hard to beat, folks. Can be a little bit cagey as well, not wanting to give a lot of information away. Certainly when I started on the open matches, it was a case of if I wasn't doing well, I'd go in, obviously with permission, go and sit close or sit behind someone who was doing well, and you can glean information that way. But that'll be further down the line. So first up, definitely get on club matches and feel your way into it, because you'll learn so much in that respect as well. So yeah, that's the first one. Fish club matches, not open matches. Next up then folks is the draw. Now me myself personally, I'm always flipping well early for a draw, because I get so giddy when I know I've got a match the day after. And I'd recommend doing that, getting there nice and early. If you're allowed to, have a quick walk around the venue and think, oh, I want to draw that peg. Oh, I want to draw that peg. Don't want to draw that peg. That's normally my peg. Things like that. So just getting there nice and early. Obviously, you can have a brekkie, get chatting to other anglers that are there. You know, obviously you would have done your own work. You'd have found out what fish are in, you know, what baits to use. And then the actual draw itself. So when you get there, as soon as you see the match organiser, usually the match organiser will be the grumpy one in the corner who's got a list of names and he's ticking the names off and he's taking your money. So whatever the pools will be on the day, obviously if it's a club match, you wouldn't necessarily, yeah, you'll have to book on, but then you'll go and pay your pools on the day. And then say it draws at 9 o'clock, you'll see a queue forming, you go in, draw your peg, let's say peg 6. The organiser will take your number, he'll write peg 6 next to your name, and then you go off to your peg and then do whatever you want after that. But basically, what I like to do when I've drawn my peg, what happens at a lot of venues, certainly club venues, if they've got like their own cafe, there'll be a board up of results. So you can have a look at like what pegs have done what, and then if you're not nowhere near them, you just go to the pub. No, you don't really, folks. Go and fish your peg, but yeah, do a little bit of homework, see where the fish have come from, and then that way it just gives you more confidence. But that's the draw, done and dusted. Get there early, get your pools paid, and go and draw a flyer. So next up, it's all about the money. Obviously, this is what we go for, the pennies, folks. Now, bit of terminology used here, you know, and what's what. So you've got obviously your individual, your overall results. You've got your section money. You've got default money. You've got super pools. I'm going to break them all down for you, folks, and talk you through each one. First up is your pools money. So when you rock up, you pay your pools money, let's say 20 quid. Now, usually around £10 of that will go to the actual fishery. So it's only like you going pleasure fishing, yeah, where you pay your £10 day ticket, That's what the pools money is for. So £10 goes to the fishery, the other £10 goes to the overall price pot. Next up then, folks, sections. What's sections all about? Not pole sections, sections of money. So again, let's stick to 20 anglers, and there'll be 4 sections of 5 anglers. It just gives you some more incentive to fish for, basically. If you're in a flipping rubbish area like I am most of the time, and you know there's no chance of getting in the main frame, then you can go for your section. So every 5 anglers, you'll be fishing for sort of like, say, £50. Yeah? So if you're not in the main frame, you get your section, you walk away with that prize money. My personal favourite, though, running on from sections, folks, is a default section. So again, let's stick to 20 anglers. They're paying the top 2, the first and the second. If you come third, you get what's called a default section. So you can end up actually third in your section, but having first and second in your section, you get the £50 section by default. Golden peg and bonus pegs next. What are they all about? Basically, once you've paid your pools, you pay an extra £1 or £2. All the peg numbers get put back into a bag. A peg number's drawn out, and if you happen to win the match off that peg, then you get whatever's gone in the pot for that day for the golden peg or the bonus peg. However, if you don't win the match off that peg, it just keeps getting rolled over. And then flipping it, folks, I've seen some of these certainly get into the thousands of pounds. I was lucky enough to win a bonus peg years ago, and I got like just over £1,000 for it. So it's just another little added incentive. Right, so you've drawn your peg, you get to your peg. What can you and can't you do? Obviously, the fisheries where you're going, certainly club fisheries, they'll all have a set of rules. So make sure the most important thing is that you read the rules first. Now, if you're allowed to garden, if that's in the rules, I'd certainly recommend that you can get a nice sort of like clean area that's not overgrown. If you can sort of like, you know, it's summer and you want to fish in the margin, make sure you're doing a bit of that. You can go and plumb up. You can set everything up that you want to fish with, but you can't obviously bait up, things like that. You can't put any bait in the water whatsoever. Keep nets is another one as well. Keep nets should be out on the bank drying behind you, and then 15 minutes before the all-in, that's when you can put your keep nets in. So, you know, a lot of these fisheries now, these carp fisheries, they say 4 nets, have them all out drying behind you, put them in 15 minutes before, and away you go. Gardening's the main one though, folks. Make sure you pay attention to that. When it comes to rods, and I've seen a few people do this, you've got to be careful of what you're doing. Obviously, we all carry our rods pre-done these days. Let's take an ICS feeder system, for example. You know, mine's already set up with a method on. Now, say I wanted to clip up. I've got an island here. If I wanted to clip up to that island, I can't cast in with that method. Even though I know there's no bait on it, you must use a ledger bomb. You've got to use a bomb because, you know, if there's bait on it, obviously you're cheating. You can't put any bait in whatsoever. The other thing as well is pole pots. You can't ship a rig out to go and plumb up with a pole pot on. Again, I've seen lots of people do it, and obviously with a big pot as well. Don't ship out with a big pot to try and get your marker or whatever, this, that and the other. You simply won't be allowed to do that either. So when it comes to the fishing, obviously the all-in's gone. Don't expect it to be anything like when you go pleasure fishing. Can be, don't get me wrong, we all have them days where it's absolutely amazing, but just stick to your guns, be nice and calm, and don't overcomplicate anything, folks. Obviously, we say this in our videos all the time. Fishing is simple. A lot of the time it's the anglers that complicate it. So don't have loads of baits on your side tray so you're constantly swapping and changing. Just have baits that are relevant for the fish. So predominantly it's going to be pellets, and then the natural bait like maggots or casters, that kind of thing. Choose maybe 3 lines. So let's take a typical snake lake, for example. Your margin, your middle, and then you're across, and that is it. The main thing is don't complicate it. Obviously on open waters you might want obviously your feeder rod or a waggler rod as well, but just keep things simple. Don't welly baiting everywhere, just enjoy it more than anything. Net limits then, folks. Flipping 8 limits, but you've got to get used to them. Usually it's sort of 50 to 70 pound is your net limit, so make sure you do your homework and find out what that particular fishery is that you're fishing, what the net limit is. Now, what happens if you go over? So usually, say it's a 50 pound net limit. So if you go over 50 pound, generally 50 to 60 pound, they'll knock you back to 50 pound. If you go over 60 pound, there are some fisheries that will disqualify that net completely. It's only that net. But then you have got fisheries as well that if you go over 50 pound in one of your nets, the whole lot of your nets get disqualified. Yeah, so be really careful on that. If it's a 50 pound limit, I'll generally stick to 35, 40 pound, then move on to the next one. The other thing as well is keeping your carp and your F1s, or usually it's carp, separate to your F1s and your silvers. So again, do your homework on that. So what it'll be, you've got to put your silvers and F1s, or just silvers in one, and then your carp, just carp in one, or it might be carp and F1s, depending on the size of them, in another. So pay attention to your net rules, folks. Next one then, so all out goes. If you've got a fish on, you must shout, "Fish on!" If you don't, then just looks a little bit dodgy if, you know, people are looking around like, he's still playing a fish after time. So make sure all out goes. If you have got a fish on, shout "fish on," and then you've got 15 minutes left to play that fish. If you don't get the fish in that allotted time, 15 minutes, that fish does not count. So let's pretend you've not got a fish on. All out goes. You start packing away. Then usually what will happen is, certainly a lot of these fisheries now, they have these like golf buggy kind of things with, you know, scales on the side. So they'll come round, they'll weigh you in. Some fisheries actually go and get your keep nets for you, weigh in yourself. Other times, you know, it's probably 50-50. Other times you've got to get your nets out and weigh them. After you've packed all your gear away, generally, well, it will be where you've drawn, you know, where you drew your peg in the morning. That's where the results will be, and find out whether you've got loads of pennies to come or not. Yeah! More than that though, folks, if you're fishing your first match, just flipping go and enjoy it. That is what fishing and being out in this is all about. It's like the bestest sport in the whole wide world. If you have been beat, you know, you're not expecting to obviously, you know, win. If you do win your first match, then fantastic. But if not, go and have a chat with those that have beat you and find out what they've done, so then you'll know for next time. But as I said, the most important thing though, folks, just go and enjoy it.